Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm glad to have all of you join us today. So today's webinar is about Mockingbird, which is a new feature in WaveMaker. And we're going to talk about the importance of Mockingbird, the significance of it, and why it is pivotal towards developer productivity. Right, but for the benefit of our viewers of this webinar today, we'll also be giving you a quick overview of WaveMaker before we begin. And I'd like to quickly introduce the team who are the panelists for today's webinar. So we have Deepika, who is the engineering manager at WaveMaker. She works closely with our product team, and she will be walking you through the webinar and helping us understand a little bit more about API Mockingbird. I am Aditya. I am Senior Customer Success Manager at WaveMaker, and I will be your host today, walking you through the platform before I hand it off to Deepika. Right, so let's quickly begin. So as you know, WaveMaker is a low-code application development platform that is purpose-built by developers for developers. Our unique approach is that we are completely built on an open standards framework, which gives developers added flexibility and also falls well within their comfort zones. And sticking to the best practices of low code, we also follow what you see is what you get kind of approach with the Visual Studio when it comes to application development. Let me quickly move on to the next slide. Yeah, so a little bit about our tech stack on this slide. First of all, on the front end, WaveMaker uses, again, open standards framework, primarily being Angular, Bootstrap, HTML, and CSS. On the back end, we use Spring and Hibernate Java frameworks. When it comes to deployment, we are completely agnostic of where you want to deploy. We actually give you that freedom of deploying where you would like to. Right, so you could deploy on-premise, on cloud, your private cloud or public cloud, on Kubernetes or Red Hat OpenShift, right? So complete flexibility there where you need to deploy your apps. Every application that you build using WaveMaker is completely responsive. And that also gives you the added advantage of where you can access your applications on any device out there, right? So be it web, which is your standard web app, can be accessed on any browser, which could be on your mobile or tablet as well. We have also introduced React Native in mobile. So all of your applications for mobile right now will be React Native, through which you can build your respective Android or iOS applications and then later list it on the App Store or Play Store, adhering to the store guidelines. You can also get incredible results with the UI in WaveMaker, which is quite, very consumer grade in terms of the results that you can achieve with the UI, because WaveMaker allows you a lot of fine-grained detail which you can add to the UI and express that in your applications, right? Making the UI and UX quite great. Furthermore, our entire application development approach is API-centric. So we follow an API-centric design, and sticking with today's theme, which is about API mocking and what Mockingbird is. So we'll get into that a little later on as part of the agenda today. Right. So very quickly, just to give you a high-level overview of what WaveMaker delivers, is we're giving you an open standards-based platform, which is a developer-centric platform where it's very easy for developers to adopt WaveMaker, especially if you're coming from a Java background. And with the help of the WaveMaker documentation and training, non-Java developers can pick it up quite easily as well, right? As a platform, we don't have any vendor lock-in. And we are very true to this term. So what this ideally implies is that you can build an application in WaveMaker, export it out of WaveMaker, and deploy it anywhere at any given point, right? Free of any runtime dependency back into WaveMaker. We also generate code. So for each project or tasks that you do in WaveMaker, we generate real code, which is readable, maintainable, extensible, and portable as well. Right? And you can also continue to manage your code outside of WaveMaker through your respective IDE of choice. And a little bit about our operating model, which is basically our pricing as well, which is completely developer focused. So we charge based on the number of developer seats. We have no limit to the number of applications that you develop or the number of end users that access these applications. So I'm going to take a quick pause here and just switch screens and move into the demo. Right, so just give me 1 second while I get to the demo. So I'm logging in to my WaveMaker account. So WaveMaker is available in two main offerings. One is the WaveMaker Online, which is our SaaS version, which is what I'm showing you at the moment. And the other is WaveMaker Enterprise, which is our on-prem setup that you can install behind your firewalls. Right, so this is my personal account in WaveMaker, and I'm just going to open one of my applications. And as you can see in this app itself or this project itself, I have the ability to choose which version of the app I want. So I have an older archived version, which is running on 10.1.6, and the other is 11.3, right? So basically, as you get an upgrade in WaveMaker, you can choose to continue using the older app if you need to, or you can upgrade to the new app, or rather push your new app to production when you feel it's ready to go, right? From here, you can also invite more people to join in or collaborate on your project, and you can also define specific contributors and give them a role to your application, right? And certain privileges and role controls as well. So that too is possible in both the enterprise version as well as our online teams version. So let me open an existing app here, right? And while this happens, in the meantime, I also want to speak about themes in WaveMaker. So you can build a theme out of the box with WaveMaker. So this is a quick example of how a theme would look. You can actually, use the theme builder to construct the theme, and you can actually choose the theme from scratch, right? So let me quickly open the theme builder again and just walk you through that. So the theme in WaveMaker is basically the governing entity for how your look and feel of the application would happen. And you can actually manage this with defining your primary colors, secondary colors, based on your Figma outputs or Zeppelin files, and use the same outputs and build your theme in WaveMaker, right? So that would basically give you a quick way to build out a theme that can adhere to your existing branding guidelines for your personal use or for your customers' use, right? So you can pick the fonts, the styles, the icon classes as well, and you can also visit the code editor if you want to get some, little bit more fine-grained into that specific theme, right? And once your theme is ready, you can actually import that theme right into your application, and it would take effect. Right, so this is the screen that I have when I first log in, which is basically my dashboard page for this particular application. So this is what we call as the canvas. And this is where you can get access to the themes. And from here, you can directly import the specific theme in which you have developed using the theme builder, apply it on the project, and it would take effect for that specific application. Right, so WaveMaker also has an exhaustive list of widgets. So this is the widget library that you can see that we have that's available in WaveMaker, right? WaveMaker also gives you the ability to connect to backend systems as well, such as your databases. So I'll just get into that. We also have a page viewer. So this particular application has multiple pages. It also has something called as a page partial. So if I were to work on just the left navigation here, this would be entering a page partial scenario, right? So let me quickly talk about the backend as well. So we can integrate with databases using WaveMaker. So we can connect to any relational database out of the box. For non-relational databases as well, we can connect to such to databases like Mongo or Kafka DB using connectors. Right. So if I were to click on connect to a database, you just need to choose the database of choice, enter the database version, choose the file, configure the settings, select the tables, and directly import. Right. So if I were to talk a little bit more about that, we have an example of a sales vision database here, right? And this is a MariaDB. So if I were to look at the table in this database, this is the database design or the schema that's been presented to you. In addition to this, what WaveMaker also does is not only do we capture the schema, but any existing queries that are part of your database is also captured, and you can also run your stored procedures from here. In addition to that, we do one more step, which is where we auto-generate the APIs for the database based on the CRUD endpoints. I mean, or rather, the CRUD APIs are auto-generated based on the database, right? So this is what's happening here. So if you look at the table entities, you can actually see the auto-generated APIs or the CRUD APIs by the WaveMaker platform. You can also import a Swagger file or URL into WaveMaker, right? And just to demonstrate this, what I've done is I've imported the pet store API, and you can see all the CRUD endpoints auto-generated. Right. We also work with third-party APIs today. I mean, we'll be showing you this slide today in the Mockingbird part of the webinar. Before I introduce Mockingbird to you, I just want to show you how you can import an API. So it's very straightforward. You just click on Add a Web Service, and you can choose to interact with either a REST API, a SOAP API, or a WebSocket. The process of importing it is very straightforward. You just need to define the method, configure the parameters of choice, the authentication, if any. You can also choose from an OAuth provider, follow the wizard, and just directly import the API. Right. So I'd like to hand it off to Deepika now, but just before I do that, I'd like to also give you a quick understanding of Mockingbird and the reason why we've taken it as a feature in WaveMaker. So let me just stop sharing, right, and hand over the share access to Deepika. So Deepika, I'm going to make you the host so you can share your screen. Right. So Mockingbird, in essence, what it does is often at times during a development process, when you are developing applications, you can encounter issues with the API. Either the API is going into development or the respective output from that API is not precise, or it can malfunction at times. So to kind of mitigate this, what we have done is we have given you the ability where you can mock the APIs, and this is based on certain ML algorithms where we understand the type of API response that's coming in, and we try to mock a similar response so that you can have continuity in building out those applications without any disruption. Right. To speak a little bit more about this, we have Deepika, who's going to walk you through the session today. And please note, this session is being recorded, so feel free to, we will be sending you the recording to all the registrants. And in addition to that, I also wanted to say, please keep your Q&A coming using the Q&A section of the webinar, right? So you can send in your questions and we will try to answer all of them at the end during the Q&A. So over to you, Deepika. Thank you.
Thank you, Aditya, for hosting this session and briefing WaveMaker product. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to today's session. I'm Deepika Srimantula, Engineering Manager for Developer Experience Features at WaveMaker. As you all know, WaveMaker as a low-code platform is also well known for building customer-facing applications. So coming back to today's topic, this session is about new feature named Mockingbird, which is enabled at WaveMaker Online and shipped with the latest enterprise versions of as well. Here is the agenda of today's session, where I'll be talking first about what is API mocking in general, description about Mockingbird, why we have built this Mockingbird as an integrated feature with WaveMaker, followed Mockingbird demo. So I'm going to start this session with what is API mocking generally. I mean, how we have to understand this API mocking. So mocked APIs are simulated APIs generally used in place of actual APIs when REST APIs are down. And let me talk about why we use API mocking as well. Every front-end developer will have complete control over application built on top of APIs, whereas those APIs not entirely in UI developers' control may undergo iterative development impacting applications which have been developed by the UI. Now, I will quickly make you go through a few of use cases for a clear understanding of why API mocking is important. Imagine you are developing a UI application on top of APIs which have been delivered by your backend team. All of a sudden, you realize that the API is down, the backend team is not in your time zone, and the API instability is impacting your productivity. What will you do as a developer? Let me explain you another scenario or an use case where most of the third-party APIs are charged based on the number of the transactions after they reach their rate limit, restricting the number of calls that may be made available back in an hour or a day, or it would be more sometimes. So this again typically impacts your productivity. In both the above scenarios, API mocking not only saves the development time, but also saves development cost by removing dependency with these third-party APIs. Now, what if you have a one-click feature to mock these APIs, like the feature what we have provided with the WaveMaker, like which we call it as a Mockingbird. So Mockingbird is one of the WaveMaker developer experience features introduced to accelerate web and mobile application development. This feature can be used when there are issues with the backend APIs because of API instability, incompleteness, or sometimes it would be the increased cost. Though Mockingbird is around simulating APIs, this is unlike any other API mock server or tools available currently in the market. So to answer your question, like why Mockingbird? As a WaveMaker developer with the Mockingbird feature, you don't have to rely on the available APIs or the APIs which is not available. Once the API contract is made and you have imported the Swagger specification or Open API specification, all you have to do is to ask WaveMaker to create a mock implementation. Our Mockingbird is smart enough to understand the data types of each field in your API response and choose mock data intelligently. So Mockingbird can recognize like hundreds of data types starting from first name, last name, zip code, credit card number, and a lot more such type to mock data. So let me start my demo. This quick demo will help you understand how simple it is to mock APIs for WaveMaker developer. In this demo, I'm going to show you 3 applications developed using WaveMaker. The first application is a managed accounts, a single page banking application built on top of APIs. The second application is again the banking application, which is a complete Bright Bank application, is also built on top of APIs. The third one is a sample application with analytics where I used different chart widgets. First, let's go on to the WaveMaker Studio to explore managed account single page application. So this is my managed accounts page, the application which has been built with a single page. As Aditya has briefed us about our product, I'm directly jumping into the usage with this feature, Mockingbird feature. So this application was developed using WaveMaker on top of Weavers APIs, whereas Weavers is a banking as a service provider. First, let me import the required Weavers APIs. Here is where we can import the APIs, and there are 2 ways as Aditya has showed it as in the demo. One is a URL based, the other one is a file based. Right now I'm using the file based, where I'll import a Swagger specification. Let me give a proper name here. So this imported API response is bounded to a data widget on this page. As this is a single page, the page is developed using card widget. You can see here. And which is a data widget again. This card is designed with the grids and labels. As this is a banking application, the widget holds user account details like account type, username, card number, and balance. And each and every label here is bounded to the API response. So if you can see, it has been bounded to an API response. And this is where we typically bound API responses. And these API responses have been bounded to the imported APIs, which I just named it as Weaver's accounts. Now let me quickly show you these as I showed you the widget and API response bindings. Let me quickly preview the page. So this there is no response because this application has dependency with the auth token. So I'm not able to see the response as expected. So let me make this page work with an auth token, and this auth token is given by the Weaver's APIs. Without this auth token, the application will not work, and the auth token expires every 5 minutes. So let me get a fresh one and configure this auth token at a property level. Now let me preview the page. Yeah. So after the preview, this is how the managed account page response looks. Here, whatever the page response we see is served by the real APIs with original data. So let me close this and show you how same page works with the mock enabled. Say that if we don't have a token and we want to preview the application or develop application and then preview the application, then it's a blocker. But there would be multiple, not only the token, there would be multiple use cases for a developer who would have faced in the real-time development where the application is not responding as expected because of the issues with the APIs or some other issues. But still, WaveMaker developer can work and preview the application as usual by enabling the mock APIs, which is powered by our Mockingbird. Now, let me use the Mockingbird feature. As I said, it's a one-click feature. Enabling the toggle button here will help you mock respective APIs. So the moment I switch it on here, what Mockingbird does is like when an API hit happens through the application, let me preview this application to make the API hit. So these API hits from the UI are not invoking the original APIs. Instead, mocked APIs are invoked, which have been hosted by the Mockingbird with respective imported Swagger specifications. So if you can see, all the page response here is holds all the mocked data, and the APIs have been served from the Mockingbird. So let me save this URL so that it would be reference to compare the page that has been served by the original APIs. And now pointing the application back to the real APIs is made simple again. Just what you have to do is untoggle the button. Now you can see that the label has been removed from the imported API. If you toggle it, let me show you how the label comes in. If you toggle it, yeah, here you can see that this imported API is mocked. Let me untoggle it and preview again. See if you can see the page response is from the original APIs. And here this response is from the Mockingbird, and which has been Mockingbird mocked the APIs, and the data is also mocked by the Mockingbird. So we can see that almost the mocked data is very close to our realistic data. Let me close these applications and let me open another application, Brightbank application. The Brightbank application is built on the same Weaver's APIs. So here is our Brightbank application. So here I mocked all the imported APIs consumed by the application to show how application functionality works with the mock enabled. So let me preview it. As I said, this is again a banking application, and this has good number of pages built. And here is the dashboard view of the application, accounts, cards. Yeah, let me even show you the functionality of the application with mock enabled. As I said, the imported APIs where it has been mocked, and the data here, the page response, every page response is served by Mockingbird. So the functionality, there's no change in the functionality. All the functionality works fine. Let me even do some post calls. Let me transfer funds from to list is also a mock data. So, I mean, this is how the functionality works. Even the APIs have been mocked. Let me jump on to another application, which is a company analytics. Here, this is a sample application with analytics, where you can see that how Mockingbird works seamlessly to serve data for a graph-based applications. So if I open this is again a small, simple application, which has very less pages. And here I imported 3 different APIs, which have been built from the scratch. Scratch, I mean, there is no hosted APIs. So you can even make application work without any hosted APIs, just mock them and use them directly. So when I preview this page, so here is a pie chart which works as is with the mock data. And here is the cards list which have been mocked again. So the company analytics data is also mock data. Market analysis, which is an align chart, is also a mock data with the dates display. So this is how we made this feature work with a better developer experience to increase the productivity of WaveMaker developer. Here ends my Mockingbird demo. Let me even talk a few words about our roadmap, like what we are going to do next. As I said earlier, the Mockingbird feature can be used right away on our WaveMaker online version and also the latest enterprise versions as well. The current version 1 Mockingbird is basic version of API mocking. We have a lot more to do to make it complete, as we have the foresight to make this work magically for the WaveMaker developers. So overall, our target is to make Mockingbird algorithm work smarter to give accurate mock responses based on the data types present in the API specifications. Let us, this ends my demo session, and let us move on to the next part of the session, which is Q&A.
Yeah, Deepika, thanks for your demo. It was really insightful to see how Mockingbird can help improve developer productivity, right, and help with developer value in the long term as well. Right, so we do have a couple of questions that have come up, and I'd like to kick things off just asking, there's a question around what is the different types of Swagger specs supported when it comes to API mocking, and can you just talk a little bit around that?
Yeah, we support Swagger and OAS specific, any version of latest OAS specifications actually. So this feature is compatible with Swagger 2.0 and OAS, any OAS versions, latest versions as well.
Thank you. And there's another question which is kind of unrelated to Mockingbird, but it's more about by using list widgets, can we show a to-list item in a single row by passing dynamic data? Right. So I guess the question is, how do we show a list within a list and also show passing some dynamic data through it?
Yeah, I mean,
sorry. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so we support if the response data is defined in an object, okay, we support all types of objects. even if it is in list and list, and whatever the response is, we support all, we mock all type of responses. So yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. If you have a list and list object, we support it.
Great. And can you also touch a little bit upon the ML algorithm that's being used here when it comes to getting or rather receiving the API response for API mocking, right? So how does it understand the type of data and how is it generating the desired response?
Yeah, I mean, actually, as I said, this is a basic version of API mocking feature, which is a Mockingbird. So what we have used is like NLP based machine learning algorithms is used to automatically get API response for each field defined here. So here algorithms helps us to get the accurate response close to the realistic data. So we have manually trained our data in such a way that for now, for this version 1, we have manually trained our data with taking few domains like finance, health sectors and all, and our database is going to serve these two types of domains using these algorithms.
Great. And I think there's a two-part question here. So I think the first one is, how do we test failed scenarios with mock APIs? And the second kind of relating question to that is more about, can we delay, can we add a delay in API to test error pages?
Yeah, I mean, adding a delay to test error pages, right now we are not handling it. Right now I can say no. We don't take up the delay and then respond it properly. But the other question is something relevant to the failed responses, right? The request may also fail. Sometimes the failed responses have been handled here, but more or less these failed responses will be handled if you defined it properly in your specifications. Like depending upon the request data, we validate the data. Request data and call the status code. If the status code is also defined like 400, 401, and the other status codes, error status codes have been defined in the specification, we honor it and give the response accordingly. So if it is not defined, we return our own handled response, right?
And there are two more interesting questions that that have been asked by the audience. So one of it is basically about how OAuth would be triggered here when it comes to APIs protected by OAuth. Will it ask for authentication token, or the mock will just give a response irrespective of OAuth, right? So I think this was partially covered in your session today, but why don't you help with this answer as well?
Right. So the token, whatever is passed, if it is defined in the specification properly, like the size, the max and minimum requirement of the token, okay, then it validates the token and it generates a token automatically, and I mean, you are supposed to give the token, of course, and it validates it and responds accordingly. But it's a fake data. I mean, whatever the token comes in, it is considered.
So, but I think the answer to this question is more about when we are mocking, we are not passing it through any OAuth, right? We're just mocking it irrespective of OAuth.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm not sure if I understand this question fully, or I don't know if the question is incomplete, but there's a question here which is asking more about, can a developer modify the content of API data? So I don't know whether this is relevant to API mocking or irrespective of API data. I mean, or just the main API data itself.
Yeah, I mean, might be the user needs control onto the data, in the sense might be he's expecting his own data. Okay, so I mean, if right now we dynamically generate the data and user doesn't have any control onto the data, but later on we will honor the examples defined in the specification and the default values defined in the specification and give the responses accordingly. So we honor the examples, but that is our upcoming feature, which is very soon will be released with our upcoming release, might be in a month or so. So yeah, I mean, I can say that if you modify the data in an example defined in the specification, we will honor it.
Great. And I think we are kind of coming towards the end of the session, but I do have, again, another two-part question. I think part A of this question, I might need your help to answer this, which is more about how can, will this, if multiple developers are collaborating and there is API mocking involved, does that work seamlessly, or, is there some sort of disruption that's expected?
Yeah, I mean, yes, this is a project level mocking. If this project is shared among different users, of course, the mocking works. Like team collaboration is valid for this mocking feature, in the sense the mocking feature is available within the collaborated team. I mean, in the sense, if a user mocks it, the mocking APIs will be available for the other user as well, who forms a team.
So that's great. So basically, anyone who's collaborating on the same project will basically see the same mocked API data.
Right.
Great. And I think the final question is more around the licensing, and I'd like to take this one. So the question was more around how does the licensing work for newly added features in WaveMaker, such as Mockingbird. And I think everyone would be glad to know that our licensing model, as long as you have an active license with WaveMaker, any upgrades or new features that is added to the platform automatically would be in effect for you as long as you have an active license or subscription with WaveMaker, right? So yeah, so I think that's a wrap on the questions for today. I really thank everybody for attending this session, and thank you, Deepika, for this feature-rich demonstration of Mockingbird, right, and explaining it so well. So thanks, everyone. Stay tuned for more of our webinars, which we will post shortly on what we are going to do coming up in the future as well. And we will make the recording available to all of our users. I do have some questions around, I just want to address this one last question, because there are some newer registrants who are completely new to WaveMaker, and today's session might have been a little more advanced for them. So please visit our YouTube page. We have quite a lot of our earlier sessions there, which kind of dwell into the basics of how you can build an application with WaveMaker, and it's also featured on our documentation page, which is wavemaker.com/learn. So I'd urge you to visit both of these pages, and hopefully that can help you get started with WaveMaker. And without any hesitation, please contact support, which is support@wavemaker.com, and our support team would be super glad to help you out if you get stuck anywhere. Once again, thank you all for your time. Hope to see you soon again.